Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the TraderMerlin show. For some reason, my microphone wasn't working. Had a nice little gap there. Welcome to our Monday edition. Before I dive into all the good stuff for this week, there are going to be minor changes this week. I'll do a show today. It's going to be a short one because I have Todd here in my home studio recording, so it's going to be a short one with Todd for this show today. Number two, tomorrow I'll do a regular normal show. Wednesday, Wednesday, I'm not going to do a show, and Thursday and Friday I will do shows. So I'm just going to do a short one today, and then I'll do a regular length one because I'm going to have Bill Addis on the Thursday program, but a regular show tomorrow and no show on Wednesday. I just need extra time to record. So sorry for the time away, but got to get this stuff done. Todd is being a trooper. He's downstairs playing with the dogs while I do this show. Okay. Today's topic, I've talked about different positions I might like to buy into. And I talked about Boeing, and I guess Marshall wanted more clarity there because he sent in this question over the weekend. Said, can you talk about Boeing and what you think the next 6 months look like for Marshall? So Marshall, thank you for the question. I created this graphic here, which, as you guys may have seen from John's comments in the chat, looks a lot like Seattle. I actually didn't even put two and two together. I just said, AI, create me a picture of Boeing plane taking off. And so it was cool. I just see all the cranes there. It actually looks like a decent airplane. The AI is getting better and better. So the topic, at least in my mind, is Boeing about to take off? And it's a tricky one because the chart looks absolutely miserable. Let's go bring up that chart right now and show you. Here is their chart for, I've got this going back into early 2023. But what's noteworthy for me is this sell-off that happened. If you go to where we closed at today, it was a nice day for Boeing, by the way. It was up almost 4%. It's still down 35% off those peaks we saw back in December. So that's a pretty ugly slide. Of course, a lot of this driven by the uncertainty, the accidents that happened, doors falling off, and just a lot of negative press, which of course can have a big impact on your price of your security. So I zoomed out here a little bit, and I mentioned this on the show the other day that said, I don't know if I'm comfortable buying Boeing at present prices, which is why I was looking at this 140 level as a potential point to maybe buy Boeing if in fact it did drop down to those levels. So that was my talk track, I don't know, a couple days ago, last week sometime. And I thought maybe we could take this a little step further since Marshall wants to know about the prognosis, the hypothesis of what could happen. Again, I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. This is just me looking at things that I see as being the driver of price for Boeing, either up or down. So let's start there. And of course, if you guys have some, please feel free to type them in the chat. And by the way, before I dive into that, you guys said Todd Davis. Yes, Todd Davis. Have him guest star. I don't have a spot for him. It would actually require me to do a bunch of work. Maybe we could do it. I really have to record these videos. That's like my number one priority. But I might be able to. It could be a bit tricky getting him to squeeze in here and fit on this little desk I have. But maybe. I'm not ruling it out. A good thought there, John. Okay. So my graphic here. AI missed the falling. Ooh, ouch. You mean Don Dawson, not Don Duncan, Don Dawson. No, I haven't had him on. I haven't talked to him. I left a message and he hasn't responded back, but I'll keep reaching out to Don Dawson. So here's where I want to start things off with. The bullish arguments. All right, so anytime you look at a chart that's as dismal as Boeing's chart is right now, there's that instant inclination on your part, and I'm sure some of you might feel this. You look at this and you go, man, this looks like a buy, right? It's sold off so much. It's Boeing. It's a great company. It's going to be, you got to buy it, right? You got to put that on the back burner and kind of shelve that emotional feeling and say, okay, what are the facts that are in front of me? So I'll look at just a little bit of fundamentals here and then predominantly technicals and then just feelings, nothing more than feelings. And then we'll say, what's the general consensus? So I'm going to start with the bullish arguments for why, you should buy Boeing now. Bullish argument number one, it's Boeing. That's it. Really, bullish argument number one, it's Boeing. There's no one really making commercial airliners in the United States. You've got You have Airbus, but that's a European company. That's based out of Europe. And I'll explain more why that's a big factor here. But it's Boeing. And then number two is, well, where else are you going to go? again, we have United was talking about when the Supermax or the Max 9 had the doors falling off. United actually said they're going to not order their planes. They already had an order for them, and they canceled the order for planes. Actually, they didn't cancel. They said they were looking for alternatives and potentially going to cancel their order for the Max 9 and maybe the Max 10s. But where are they going to go? They're going to go to Airbus. Okay, great. Well, Airbus is serving predominantly Europe, and they're already backlogged big time with demand. So United won't get their planes for much longer than if they went with Boeing. Boeing would get them much quicker, and they're already in the queue. So that's, Liz says, order one off of Amazon. Wouldn't that be nice? Can I get a 737 S Max? Yes. So those are the two big pieces. And number one is this decent debt offering, or recent debt offering. And they just announced today, I heard that they've issued $10 billion worth of debt. Now, this debt ranges from, I believe, 2-year maturities to 40-year maturities. So again, going back to the bond market, and you lock up your money in a 40-year bond with Boeing, what they're going to give you is the treasury rate plus 2%. So, if you look at short-term treasuries paying 5% right now, that means Boeing's going to be on the hook for 7% interest on these bad boys. That's going to get a lot of demand. People locking in for 40 years making 7%. We talked about retirement planning, and now in retirement, you need a specific amount of income each month. Well, if you know that 7% is your number, then you should be in line trying to get these Boeing bonds. But apparently there was $77 billion worth of demand for the $10 billion worth of bonds they offered, because people realize Boeing's probably not going to collapse and go under. Now, they issued $10 billion worth of debt. Why? Because they're burning through cash like a drug addict through a mound of blow. They are going through it quick. They spent $3.9 billion worth of free cash. So they're building this cash pile. They had to blow through that in the first quarter alone, $3.9 billion. So while it sounds nice to get $10 billion, it may not help them shore up the problems. So those are my three biggest points. It's Boeing. You're not going to buy your planes anywhere else unless you get in line with Airbus, and that's a big line because they're serving predominantly Europe. And then their recent debt offering is a nice bullish argument because that keeps them afloat, maybe allows them to upscale up production. Because the main thing with Boeing at this moment is they're not making deliveries. They're really getting hit on that front. They're not delivering planes. Airlines are now talking about layoffs and cancels. I think Southwest said today. John, you probably know more about the specifics of this one, but I think Southwest said that they're going to stop flying from 4 different terminals in the United States because they're just not getting the planes from Boeing. That's a pretty big trickle-down effect. So at this point, if you're Boeing, you need to figure out a way to get deliveries and ramp up production as soon as possible. Plus, I got another negative argument here in just a second. Define blow. Okay, Margaret, good. Especially when I talk about someone, a crackhead or drug addict. They are spending money like crazy. There you go. How about that? Insiders said that Boeing has quality control problems. Yeah, and those insiders died. Insiders died. I think that there's a movie coming here that could be much bigger than what current situation, but I'm not going to go into that conspiracy theory on this show. So there's at least what I see is some of the bullish arguments. And we could look at the price chart of it. Maybe from a technical perspective, I could look at this price chart and say, well, Boeing has been making higher lows since 2020. Granted, it's on a big pullback. Well, if I get into a demand zone, that might also be another bullish argument. But let's go look at a monthly here to see where we've come from. All right, Boeing. All right, I guess doesn't look that bad on a monthly time frame. All right, let me get to my negative stuff here and talk about my bearish arguments. Number one, huge 6-month downtrend. I mean, that is a brutal downtrend. And to me, I'll be honest, it does smell of opportunity. Like, I do think that Boeing is going to bounce. I'm not sure if it's going to happen now. So let's see, once I get through all my bearish arguments, what you guys think. And again, once I get through this, pile them on what you think as well. Number 2 on this bearish arguments is canceled orders. United and several other companies talking about canceling orders, A, because of quality control issues, B, because of lack of deliveries. They're just not getting what they say they're going to get. That doesn't mount up to a lot of confidence on the part of these airline companies. Plus, for every plane that doesn't get delivered to someone, that's money for United. That's money for Alaska and American Airlines, JetBlue. I mean, whoever's using those airplanes and needs more capacity, they're not getting it. So, you think any company that's got big orders now through Boeing, let's say United, I think they had a pretty big order for them. If they're not going to get those planes, then what can you expect with United's stock price? I would expect it to go sideways to down. Why? Because they're not scaling up their production. They're not going to have more seats to sell, more customers. That could be problematic. Now, granted, their chart looks pretty good. United's gone from $34 up to $54 in the last 6 months or so. Really, that same period of time that Boeing has been struggling. But keep an eye on this. If those deliveries keep lagging, there's not much room for growth here with regards to United Airlines. Okay. Next. The delayed approval for the MAX 10, right? This is supposed to be their next big plane, and they're not getting approvals. Because of what's happened, it's slowed down that process of the approval for the MAX 10. That's where a lot of orders are lined up. So even if they did build them, they still can't fly them because there's no approval, which has customers like United nervous. So that's another bearish argument. Number 4, they are burning through cash, which I already mentioned. I won't use my terrible analogy. But yeah, they are ripping through cash. Again, it was $3.9 billion worth of free cash they burned in the first quarter or in the last quarter. That is not good. And if that continues, then you got to wonder where they're going to get their funding from. My guess would be that the government would bail them out. If you talk about a company that's too big to fail for the United States market, I personally believe Boeing is one of those. You guys let me know. Do you think that Boeing is too big to fail? Let me do a poll here. Hold on a second. Don't have to type in the chat. Let me make a poll here. Is BA too big to... And when I say too big to fail, that means are they going to get government intervention, essentially? There you go. So is Boeing too big to fail? The poll is going through the chat right now, so let me know what you guys... Thanks, Mr. David. Doesn't Boeing also supply the military? Yes. I don't know the extent to which, but their planes are for private and for commercial use. Yes. I think McDonald's is the largest U.S. employer. I believe McDonald's is still. It was McDonald's and then it was Amazon. Let's just say, John, they're a huge employer. I don't know whether they're the biggest, but I think that they're a pretty significant employer. To me, that's not why I believe that they are too big to fail. They're too big to fail because if Boeing goes under and no longer makes commercial aircraft, then the entire United States now has to look over to Europe and say, hey, Airbus, we're going to rely on a European company to get all of our planes that we're using here domestically. I don't think the government would let that happen. I don't think the government would let that happen in a heartbeat. They would jump in there and they would bail out Boeing. And as Larry says, yes, but it shouldn't be. I agree. We should have multiple big commercial aircraft companies in the United States. And maybe this will bring in new competition, but I doubt it. I think Boeing's pretty much got it there. Tom says, commercial aircraft is about 40% of Boeing's sales. They also do defense and spacecraft. I didn't know the spacecraft part. That's cool. So, yes, they're straddling both sides of that fence. But, when you have... If it was like Ford, Ford's not too big to fail. Maybe you have the prestige of being this long-standing American company, such an icon. But there's tons of other U.S. automakers. There's only one that does planes and aircraft to the extent that Boeing does. I know some of you would say, well, Northrop Grumman and what about Raytheon? Not really commercial aircraft to the extent that Boeing does, which we're going to need there. Mr. Davis says too many government contracts as well. Yeah. What is the most important Boeing's competitor? I would say Airbus. That'd be Airbus. Now, based off what Tom says, if in fact there's 60% of their stuff is defense and spacecraft, then you might be looking at a Northrop Grumman, you might be looking at Raytheon, but not really aircraft. Well, yeah, but I don't think anywhere near the extent that Boeing is critical. So let me see what we got here. I got 87% of you said it's too big to fail. 13% of you said no. I will put my money on it that if they need it, that the government will lend them a lifeline. You can't let it go under, not only because of what it creates, but also the jobs that it does employ. Be pretty bad. Maybe Musk could take it over. I think Musk would probably let it go to bankruptcy and then buy it out of bankruptcy and rebuild it. I don't think you want maybe all the debt on top of it. All right, and what was my last part here? Oh yeah, here's another one. Okay, if Marshall asked, what do I see going on the next 6 months? I looked at that Boeing chart, and I do want to buy it. I gotta be honest. I do look at this and go, in the long term, I think I would like to buy this. I think it would look pretty good. Okay. Here's the caveat. If you look at the bottom if you're a TradingView or whatever platform you use, if you go to the bottom here, you can click and it'll tell you what their earnings are. So notice that the most recent earnings, they lost $1.13 per share. The month before that, they lost 47 cents per share. The quarter before that, $3.26 per share loss. The quarter before that, they lost 82 cents, $1.27, $1.75, $6.18. These are all losses. They have not shown a profit since 2022, and I'm going to keep going here just to drive home the point. They lost 37 cents per share in June of 2022. Before that, it was lost $2.75. Before that, $7.69 per share. Before that, they lost 60 cents. And here is the only earnings where they have actually made money. Not that they beat earnings, but that they made money. Their reported earnings was 40 cents per share back in June of 2021. So that to me is another one. It's like, how long can you continue on here, even though their revenues are great, like $14, $15 billion, although it's been dropping. This doesn't really look that great. So I put on here last earnings profit was July of 2021. That's a pretty bad one. Again, I firmly believe that they are too big to fail. I believe the government will step in and bail them out, but they don't want to fail. This isn't like, let's just lose on purpose. So those are kind of my little bit of bullish arguments and more bearish arguments on it. If you have other ones in there, Liz, that's a funny one. Greta would be happy to see it fail. Well, I'll tell you what, she'd have a hard time flying over to America to protest, wouldn't she, with no airplanes? So suck it up, Greta. I appreciate what you're doing, but you can't complain about airplanes if you want to move around the country. What else do we have? If you guys have stuff you want me to jump in here, just go ahead and throw it in. Maybe largest U.S. exporter. That sounds good. That could be as well. So to go to Marshall's question, what do I see happening for the next 6 months? I still am comfortable personally looking at this 140 mark. Now, if you really want to play conservative and say, okay, let me wait for this thing to finish its bloodletting and continue down, then what you need to have is you need for it to make a higher high. And notice we have not. It's been making lower highs ever since December of last year, lower highs, lower lows, and keeps on breaking. I will probably, if we get down to this 160 mark, I'm going to be looking at the 140s. I'll let you know. If it's in the accounts I'm using on the show, I will let you know when I sell the 140 puts on this one. If the premium looks good enough, I will probably make a stab at it at 140. I think that's a spot I would be okay with it. But I think for right now, I'm not going to touch it. I just don't want to catch that falling knife. And, one of the things that we teach at OTA is it's okay to catch a falling knife. Right? Normally, they would say never catch a falling knife. You don't want to catch a falling knife. Well, I disagree with that. If you're going to catch a falling knife, it's okay, but preferably right as it's already hit the floor. Like it stopped, and I caught it right as it hit the floor. Fine. That's kind of what I'm looking at. And I look at Boeing right now, and I'm just going to scroll to let's put a line right across the bottom here. Right across the lows we established last week, which is right around 159.60. And I'm just going to zoom over. I'll scroll over here. And you notice that red line goes through nothing. There's no demand zone back here going back into 2022 where I would be wanting to buy it. So that's why I'm waiting for the 140 mark, which is significantly lower than from where we're at. But that's the first shot I would be taking, and then the next stop would be right around 120. So I think for me, to answer Marshall's question, I think you're probably going to see it drift down for a few more months, and then ultimately, I do believe it will turn the corner. Like I said, if you're conservative, the right thing to do would be to wait for it to start to make some higher highs. Let this ugly downtrend subside, let it turn and start to prove. And that might be as simple as this. You notice that the high we established last week on their earnings was about 177.64. If we can get above 177.64, then that may be the beginning of a reversal back to the upside. But until it makes a higher high, it's not going higher. It sounds really simple, but it's going to continue on making lows until it doesn't. It's the profound facts about trading. Everything works until it doesn't. The trend is your friend till the bend at the end. In this case, that shorter term trend for the past 6-7 months has been down. And therefore, I want it, but I'm not going to jump the gun. There's no reason to rush this as a purchase when it feels like it's going to go lower. Now, because I said this, and actually now have a video titled this, it will probably take off just because I say I'm going to wait for it to get to 140. The beauty of financial markets. I remember the demo with a real knife at my 2-day. Ooh, wow. Someone used a real knife, John? That's kind of creepy. What did Nico say? Management team focused on FCF, not engineering. Need to get finance guys out and put engineers back in charge. Well, the other piece I didn't mention here, and I should have mentioned on my bearish argument, is their debt rating. And just so you know, their debt rating is one step above junk. And the only reason I think that they haven't been lowered to junk is because they just got this nice ability to do debt offering, but because of their some cost-cutting measures. So the finance guys are now saying we're focusing on costs and trying to cut down costs, but I think if you sell a crap car and you make it cheap, who cares? It's still a crap car. You got to make sure these planes don't have doors that fly off, and you got to make sure your repair staff, service staff, construction team is top-notch. Otherwise, these problems may continue to persist. So Boeing definitely needs to do something. I will wait. Marshall, I'm going to wait on that one. I'm not going to touch it. Again, I may be selling puts over the next few weeks because I think 140 is probably a good spot for me in a long-term account to put it in. And that's what I'm sticking to. Noam says, I bought at 164 during the pandemic and held. Okay. Well, but now you're just barely up, though. At one point, you were up over $100 per share, and now you're up $10, $9. Ooh. Where'd you put that stop loss, brother? Trailing stop would have been good. Kev says, God forbid someone else falls off of Boeing. 140 may come sooner than we think. I don't think so, Kev. Look, if you're Boeing at this point, you've got to go into full-on damage control. And I know if I was a CEO of Boeing, I would be saying, hey, guys, I want you to send out our mechanics to every airport and do full inspections of these planes, make sure everything's done. We cannot afford this anymore, right? Could Tylenol afford to have more, what was it, cyanide in Tylenol that in the 80s? We can't afford that again. Let's get rid of it all and then make sure it's all pristine from that point forward. So I would make it a point to make sure that the customer feels safe and comfortable, even though, as Tom says, it's only 40% of their business. It's a major part of their business. I mean, like I said, when I was flying and people were texting me going, oh, you're on a Boeing. Oh, man, it's been nice knowing you. That's bad branding. You don't want that on your conscience there. All right. Oh, no, we got to teach you stop losses. So now there's actually a couple spots. If you bought back in 2020 at 160, you bought somewhere down in here, your exit price should have been right around 206. Not even before this, this current sell-off, but this one that happened back here. Once you started to make some new lows and swing, maybe even earlier, but 206 looks about where you should have been out. Lisa says, but Merlin, sending out your staff just increases losses. Who cares about safety? This is why I'm not a CEO, because my shareholders would be pissed at me because I'm concerned that my product is the best possible thing and the safest and most secure and trusted versus let's make more sales, right? That's why I would be a horrible business owner because a business technically is, the big thriving ones are more about just selling something as opposed to having their product be the best it can possibly be, unfortunately. How many contractor customers did Airbus took from them? I don't know. That's a good question. That's a really good question because I do know from just a bunch of articles I've read that United and several other airlines are looking at Airbus like, hey, we would like to buy some planes, but they're backlogged as well. I mean, we had a robust few years here. Since 2009, it's been one of the biggest bull market rallies we've ever seen. Of course, that's expansion for everybody, including airlines. And that's not just the U.S., folks. That's Europe as well. So there's a lot of European companies that are out there, Iberica and Ryanair and Alitalia, Lufthansa, KLM are all going, hey, we want more airplanes too. So Airbus is, I'm sure, loaded. Airbus could probably do fine just serving Europe and for the Far East, whereas we're just doing the U.S. predominantly. We send them all over the world, but this is a tricky situation for them right now. Chris says 141 to 144. Yeah, the strike prices don't offer that for options, so I'll probably be doing the 140s. Yeah. Margaret, wouldn't that be a great ad campaign? Honestly, if I'm Airbus, I may actually do that. I would have a picture of an airplane and just say, Airbus, our doors don't fall off. And the plane's in mid-flight. Oh, and then just show people in the airplane smiling, like looking out the window with a smile on their face. Brutal marketing, but hey, you know, when your opponent's down and did something so stupid like that, who knows whether it was just negligence, poor design flaw, or whatever. Either way, I probably would poke some funny ads at it because no one died from that. Like if it was a crash and people had perished, then I wouldn't do it. But no one was seriously hurt in it, I don't believe. So let's see. Why are there only two major? Yeah, good question, Kev. I don't know. You know, we talk about monopolies. We talk about, you know, antitrust and companies being broken up because one internet company buys another one, or Apple What about airlines? You know, that to me needs to be broken up. At least Boeing doesn't deny it has a problem like Toyota did with their runaway Lexus vehicles. Runaways, huh? Okay, I think I got most of these questions in there. Flying in Turkey in August, another Airbus up. There you go. Nice, Turkey. It's on the list. I've not been there yet. I'd like to go. All right, so that was my my little bit of a rant for Marshall and his question. So Marshall, thank you. My thought for the next 6 months is I believe we're going to drift lower. I think you'll probably get down about that 140 mark. And then I do think that Boeing will turn the corner. I do think it'll stabilize itself. I do believe they're going to do everything to get their inventory, you know, deliveries on track. Let's do whatever we can without cutting corners to get those planes up to snuff and up to par. And maybe that's why the delivery process is going slower, because they're being extra meticulous to make sure no problems happen. But they need to get that going. They also need to get this approval for their MAX 10, which has a lot of orders. Must have missed my comment, but what do you think of Leap selling calls? I'd be okay with Leaps on Boeing. I'd rather buy those Leaps a little bit deeper, though, right? If I do believe it's going lower. This trend has not proven to me that it's broken. Now, the bond news today, the debt issuance today, you know, caused this nice pop of 3.75%, but I don't think that's enough to right this ship. I believe it's going to continue drifting lower. So I'm okay, JD, with Leaps. I think buying, what you do, JD, is more complex than what I do, right? You're talking synthetic stuff. I am so basic when it comes to options. I would just buy Leaps outright. But yeah, those are strategies that are outside of my option knowledge. So I don't sell against Leaps. I have the synthetic calls and things like that. Let's see. So I was going to do a half-hour show today, so I need to wrap this one up here. But let me talk about a couple things today. We'll run through our top 7 markets or 8 markets. Bitcoin, still nothing to worry about. We're still in that yellow box region that I talked about the other day until it gets down below that and closes outside that lower part. Nothing to be concerned with. I do believe we're going to be going lower here. I think we're going to break down below that and potentially get down to that 52,000 mark, which was the origin of this big rally up here. So I think that that's a very real possibility, although who knows. Right now, everybody seems to be very bullish on it, which is one of the reasons I'm bearish, but I just think you're going to see some profit taking here for the next few months before we see the next big move up. 10-year. Nothing really to say here on the 10-year. We had our ascending triangle. That broke. We actually hit the target perfectly, so I can get rid of that. I will leave it the red box there, though, just as a reference, or the yellow box there as a reference for a potential pullback point. But at this point, we've had 2 down days on that 10-year yield, but nothing to write home about. We haven't made any new lows. Crude oil, though, had a nice down day today. It was looking great the last few days. The tail end of last week was fantastic. And then today, starting things off with a 1.45% slide, but technically still looking okay. You know, again, I need to see a close below these 4 bottoming tails, which I think is an indication of institution buying here and people just not letting it fall down below that $80 mark. Gold and silver. You had a nice little up move for gold. I was expecting it to be down today based off the candle formation that happened on Friday's session there. You can see a little bit of a shooting star. But no, we gapped up, rallied, closed higher, up 0.45%. Dollar index, we're almost at the podium here. Dollar index is just basically an about face. They call it a tweezer top. So it's just an about face from what we saw on Friday's session. Gave it all back today, down 0.43% on the dollar index, which leads us to our podium. And it's all pretty much a clean sweep for the broad indexes. You had NASDAQ, the S&P with 0.3%. Again, I had this little red line horizontally. The only reason this red line here is with the dashes, that is because it is the low point here. All these tails, the most points of contact. We saw it hit back here on March 15th, March 18th. Just hit it again on April 11th. So that is just a kind of a psychological demand zone. At this point, it would be a supply zone. So I kind of left that one on there as a potential stalling point for the ES going forward. NASDAQ. You can love Tesla today. It's fun getting your shares called away for a $5 gain on Friday when all of a sudden it jumps massively today. Was up, almost $30 per share, and I just got my shares taken away. Dab nabbit. Oh, well. The perils of being a trader. NASDAQ, decent day, but again, similar picture. Russell 2000, it's the one that's the outlier compared to the S&P and the NASDAQ. It's still struggling to get off those lows we established at 1939. So all in all, got a long way to go to get back up to the party with the big boys, but still looking pretty decent with a 0.67% gain today. What did Ron say? Let's see. Michael Art Leaps called the Ron Papay trade. Good one. Let's see. Where was it? Oh, I didn't check out MicroStrategy's earnings. Of course, now you guys are going to turn this to an hour show, huh? So here's your MicroStrategy. It's only down 4% in after hours. What were their earnings? Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, as a business, what do they do? It's really all about their Bitcoin holdings. You notice, wow, this was ugly. They were supposed to lose 50 cents per share. They lost $3 per share. Ouch. Ouch. Yeah, JD, Tesla was a rip your face off rally. Yeah, tell me about it. Like I say, I was long Tesla. Oops. But I thought, I was really thinking that because we had this big green day off their earnings, really just euphoria on Thursday, I thought we would close lower than 165. That's why I sold the 165. Actually, I sold it the day before. But I sold the calls against my long position at 165, which is fine. Still ended up making me a great rate of return for a very small window of time. But, man, today would have been great. The thing was up 15%. They got approval for FSD, self-driving cars, in China after Elon Musk flew over there. That is a monster improvement because they're the only one that really has the full FSD, which gives them a big competitive advantage in that market. So if you're in China and you're like, hey, I want a driverless car, got to get yourself a Tesla. They're the ones that are doing it. They're the ones that got the approval for it. So big news for Tesla. Plus that might also revive some of their slumping sales going on over in China, which was one of the things that dragged them down on their previous earnings announcement because China was slowing down. So this is a pretty big one. Platt, that's what I'm thinking. You're going August... July, August. I'll see. I might do the Julys. Remember, maybe even Junes. I don't like to go sell. If you're talking about buying the puts, you could buy the put. That's fine. You give yourself time. In this case, I'm looking to sell the puts and collect the premium because right now, given the fact that it's been trending down so much, the pain point is there and looking pretty good. Thinkorswim shows them having lost 8.26%. Really? Let me go 1 minute time frame here. At one point they were. So here's your, oops, sorry, you guys are staring at me. At one point they were down a lot. So we'll go to where they closed at, which is right there. At one point they were down 7.7%, but it looks like they're bouncing now. Okay. Yeah, we say that now. But Saylor, if Bitcoin does what I think it's going to do, no one's going to think about it. No one's going to even think about this at all. They're going to just go, man, Saylor's a genius. MicroStrategy is amazing because if Bitcoin gets to 250, like I think it will by November of next year, MicroStrategy's chart is going to go parabolic. So when you look at their chart right now, bring up the daily here, you've had this pretty significant pullback from almost $2,000 down to $1,300. Pretty ugly. However, this chart looks very similar to what's been going on with Bitcoin. If what I think is going to happen, then what will happen is it's going to drift a little bit lower, get down to about there, and then start its slow build up for another couple months, and then the last rally before we get to the end, and I'll show you what this could make Saylor's chart look like this. Here is November. It'll probably be bigger than that. be something like this. Right? That's November of next year right there. Which seems crazy to think that this, $1,400 stock, right, or $1,300 stock could be something like $5,000. Yeah, it could. It could. And again, I think that that's going to happen by November of next year. So I'm not going long on MicroStrategy, just so everybody here knows. I'm not messing. I got enough Bitcoin, so I'm spreading my investments around other areas. But that's certainly, if Bitcoin does rip as I anticipate, then MicroStrategy will most likely continue to scream up as well. That is what I'm hoping for. No, Lisa, I'm going to stop you right there. You don't hope. You're not hoping, Lisa. You're anticipating, right? You're anticipating because you have a belief that that's going to happen. Hope is like, well, I don't know. I hope. No. Don't hope. As I always say, the most foul, vile, disgusting four-letter word that you can use in trading is hope. All right. I think Todd's messaging me. Okay. All right. Thanks, Liz. Good. You knew where I was going to go with that. All right, let me show you what's happening for tomorrow. Again, tomorrow we will do a normal show, so I'll be back here and everything. It's the Wednesday show I won't be doing. Nothing really exciting on the Monday front with regards to economic data. I'll hit refresh here so we can make sure we get that one all in there. Well, I think prayer helps some people, right? I think prayer can be very good for some people. But let's go for the U.S. So there's two pieces on tomorrow's docket that I think are important, and that is they're both housing related. You have the Case-Shiller Composite 20 Home Price Index and HPI data. So HPI data shows you the price of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac mortgages. Are those prices going up? And they're expected to slowly increase. The S&P Case-Shiller Composite 20 Home Price Index basically says this is for 20 major metropolitan areas, how are prices appreciating? And if you click here, it's been a great 6-8 months, right? We bottomed out back here in July of 2023. So it's been almost a year that we've seen price appreciation again. Home prices increasing, which I think is very, very good. We're nowhere near what we were back here in June of 2022, right? Up over 20%. But historically, I believe the number for real estate appreciation is roughly 6 to 8% per year. And if you look back here long term, I'll put the cursor right where 8% is. That's a little bit high. Let's go to 6. That seems to be about right. So this is a good thing. Again, housing market is a big factor to economic growth and stability, plus people having money. We could see something like what we saw back in 2006 and 7, where everyone was just leveraging loans against their house and pulling equity out and buying stuff. Well, that tends to happen when markets do really well, and if we see these numbers continue to rise, that may bring more money into the economy. You also have CB consumer confidence numbers, and that's pretty much it on the front tomorrow for your economic calendar. Now let me go to your earnings calendar so I can get some of that stuff out of the way. Today you did have the MicroStrategy. So there were a couple different ones. You had Welltower and a couple semiconductor companies reporting today as well. But tomorrow you got a bunch of big names. And this really will be your popcorn trade of the week. A lot of volatility I expect on this one. And that's going to be Amazon happening after market hours. They are expecting 81 cents per share for Amazon. We will see what happens with that one. But right now they're at a $1.8 trillion market cap. Let's see. I hope the same thing happens that happened to them last year. I hope they get butchered on earnings. I want to see a 10, 15, 20, 30% drop in price so I can load the boat direction like I did last time, which Amazon ain't going anywhere. I think I personally keep Amazon in business. For the amount of orders I made, I needed an external hard drive because we're recording a whole bunch of stuff here with Todd. I needed a 4 terabyte hard drive. I ordered it this morning at 11 o'clock. It was delivered by 1 o'clock. Pretty phenomenal. I made it to my door. All right, so you got Amazon on your list for tomorrow, but there's a lot more than that. You have AMD, which I'm interested to see not just what their earnings are, but I'd like to see what they're saying about capacity, production, what steps they're doing to compete with a NVIDIA-type entity. You also have PayPal, Starbucks, Coca-Cola, McDonald's, Chesapeake Energy. Let me look at that McDonald's chart here real quick. That was another one that I was like, I might look to buy some McDonald's. What has it done? Come on. All right, been bouncing a little bit since we had that discussion about buying McDonald's, and it was kind of in that area of demand right around 168. So there we go. When they start selling planes, it would be totally indispensable. Wait till Tesla starts selling electric planes. I'll do this poll now. I'm supposed to be done here, guys. This is supposed to be, Todd's waiting for me. So let me just one real quick. Would you fly on an... All right, so I'm curious to see what you guys think of this one. I'm starting this poll. I got a bunch of people here. You guys should all answer this one. It's a pretty simple question. Would you fly on an electric airplane? Right? We've got jet fuel airplanes, we've got turbine engines, and that's what we're all used to and comfortable with. Would you fly an electric airplane? Because I've heard discussions about battery technology getting smaller, more compact, and lighter, and therefore potentially having an airplane that was battery powered. That would be very interesting. I mean, how quiet would that be? You don't have to worry about airplanes taking off anymore. The whole noise abatement here in Orange County would go away. John says I would pilot it. I don't know. I think I would probably let it go for a little while. I don't want to be the pioneer, right? The pioneers are the ones that always went out and came back with arrows stuck in their butt. So yeah, I don't know if I'd I don't know if I'd want to be the first one on the airplane. John, I'm pretty sure there will be a physical pilot in the cockpit, but that thing will probably just fly itself. Probably just fly itself, and the real pilot is there just to make sure in case the systems fail or something. But yeah, we are probably going to see that. My guess is within 10 years we'll have some electric battery-powered airplanes, which is just insane to me. Who knows? The turnaround of a plane might be faster. The refueling process might be, I don't know. It'd be very interesting. When cows fly, I'll fly in electric planes. Well, Linda, what if the cows flew in the electric airplane? Does that count? When they start selling planes, they would totally got that one already. You got it, JD. I'll be quiet. All right. Interesting. I see the results. I'm gonna stop these ones now so I can just show you the results and poll. 53% of you said yes. 47 said no. I'm gonna put myself in the no category just because we've got so many decades of airplane flight with traditional engines. Yeah, I probably want to wait. Mike says a hybrid airplane, maybe. Yeah, it's coming though, right? I think it's pretty clear, and it would be so. Personally, I love it because I don't like cars that are quiet. I like cars that make noise so I can hear them coming. But on an airplane, make those things so quiet we can't hear them. Oh, I live right by the airport, and so I'm recording videos with a whole bunch of people here recently. You can't hear it on the show because I just don't stop talking. But if there's any silence, you can hear the airplanes taking off right out of John Wayne Airport. That's how close I am to it. And if eventually they go all electric, that'd be very interesting. All right, what's Tom say? What's the engineer say? What's he say? Electric train depends on who is making it. Tesla is ranked around 31 to 32 auto brands sold in the United States. Not flying that kind of quality. I'll wait for the U.S. Air Force One electric. Ooh. When you're president, Margaret, I want to be on your council. You're flying an Air Force One? Okay. There were some... All right, that's going to do it, guys. I did your economic calendar. I did your earnings. For tomorrow, we'll do a full regular show. If there's something you want me to cover, you can put it down below any of the YouTube videos. I have not had a lot of chance to prepare just because I'm so busy getting the stuff ready for my home to studio record. But tomorrow, I'll just be doing my crypto class in the morning, and then I have plenty of time to prepare and get some stuff ready. So let me know if there's something you guys want me to cover. You can email me at TraderMerlin@gmail.com or just put them down below any of the YouTube videos. I will not do a show Wednesday. I will have Bill Addis on Thursday and a regular show on Friday. So there you go, my friends. Hopefully you enjoyed Marshall's question about Boeing. Thank you, Marshall, for that one. I do appreciate it. And is Boeing about to take off? I think you get another few months before that happens. Let's let Boeing make a higher high before then. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Have a fantastic remainder of your evening. Enjoy those Amazon earnings. We'll talk about that for sure on tomorrow's show. Take care, everybody.